Book something to 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 be alive. Not
Yeah. So yeah, we're live now. So yeah, let's start with some announcements. Nate, you pushed a minor fix. Do you want to just go over the thing you changed with
Oh,
post
not
maps?
not a big change. I didn't even push it out yet. It's just a small thing that the uh, Derby had a flag in it to change how to change whether source maps were generated. Um, I think the source map should be on by default instead of off by default. So that's pretty much the only change I made, and made the name more consistent.
Cool. All right, and I guess I posted a blog post last night with the YouTube video of the talk I gave at the San Francisco JavaScript meetup. So I will send that out to the mailing list. That's on the Lever blog, where like all these open source office hours are as well. And speaking of the San Francisco JavaScript meetup, Joseph, you're speaking next week, right?
On Monday.
On
So
Monday.
if anyone's in San Francisco, then you should definitely come along to the SF JavaScript meetup. I'll be talking about ShareJS and Racer and OT and how well, that should all be built on top of this stack and why it's really fantastic. So that's happening. Um,
Nice.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm actually looking forward to that. There's also the new feature that landed in Live2B last Thursday, which is dirty lists and dirty queues. It's the start of the indexing work, and the way that it works is that using dirty lists, you can atomically append to a dirty list of documents that need to be reindexed. Basically, make a journal of reindexing that needs to happen every time a document is submitted. And you can use that to update any external indexes or update any external databases, and make sure that like an external database will stay in sync. It's got the at least once property, so that when you consume from that list, then it doesn't actually, like, you'll consume the same data again if your process crashes before you confirm that you've consumed the data. Which means that you can do a lot of cool things, like you can pump all the operations into Storm, or you can pump all the operations into some analytics thing, or you can pump all the operations into an external index like Solar or something, and know what the changes are, and keep an index like that in sync. So yeah, so we hope that'll make that'll help out a lot and give people some more options on how they design out their database backends. I particularly want to use it because I want to be able to do aggregations and stuff, and one of the ideas, there's kind of two different ways we can do those aggregations. One of the ideas, which is very simple, is just to pump the dirty list, like the operations and the changes, into another process, which reindexes like some aggregations that could be stored in the same database or somewhere else. It doesn't even really matter. And then you can recalculate the aggregations when any operation changes, and then use that to like keep an aggregation state, and then that aggregation could be stored in ShareJS and Live2B as well. So then you could just see the live changes happen in your client. So yeah, so that's in there now. I've also left Lover, so Friday was my last day. I'll going to be working on a whole lot of different things over the rest of the year. I don't know how much I'm going to be working on ShareJS. I hope some. Well, I will be working on it some. I won't be working on it full time. Next year, I'm going to be going back to Australia, and I'll probably be doing bits and pieces of contracting work as well as something else. I don't know what yet. So that's my plan. And I think that's all the things from my point of view. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, we're going to be using the dirty queue pretty much right away, so we're pretty excited about that feature too.
Yeah, definitely. Nate, do you want to speak a little bit about docs, or like how, you said you get started soon?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I haven't honestly totally figured it out. I think I'll probably make Ian help me. It's hard to figure out big projects like this on your own. But the gist of it is, I think we need some sort of guide, that is something people can read through and understand the basic concepts. Because there's some sort of very different things about our stack about Derby, about ShareJS, and just giving people a quick intro to like what's special about this and what do I need to know and how's this different than other things. And then there's a bunch of detailed things that are kind of around a subject area, and there's also then like detailed API docs. So it's tempting to just start with detailed API docs, but actually I'm thinking the like overall getting started thing is probably the most important that people want. So I'll probably start with that, and then start by writing specifically targeted guides like how do I build a component, like what's the high level there, and like how do components inherit from other components, what's the high level there, and then probably actually just like put in a structure in place for the API docs, but maybe actually fill that in last, just because it's probably easier for other people to contribute to, and it's a little more like modular. It requires less holistic understanding, and also is one of those things where it's easier to answer specific questions about versus like these overall things like how do components inherit from each other are pretty detailed, and there's like multiple options. It's probably more useful for me to do those kind of things first.
Yeah, I think that sounds like a good plan. Mm-hmm. So it's coming, guys. All right. So yeah, is there any other announcements, Vlad? Do you have anything you want to announce, or we want to jump into questions?
I don't have questions.
Okay, cool. Cool, no questions. Yeah, the other thing we should probably do from here on is ask people to send questions in advance of the meetup, or call, whatever this is.
Yeah, maybe we can make some
for next time.
Yeah.
Trying to think if anything came up.
Also,
I'll look at the list.
Jan seen, maybe Nate also, maybe I want to show you.
Yeah, the chat.
Chat. Yes, there's new project in GitHub. Interesting thing. And also it will be useful if you all maybe time to time will appear there, and we will ask questions.
Yeah, I'll try to hang on there for sure. It's nice to have a chat that has a log. It's associated with GitHub, like with your GitHub projects, right? Or organizations. Yeah.
Just authentication?
Yeah, you authenticate with GitHub and just ask for your name and like what organizations you're a membership of, or you're a member of, and then it like creates a channel for each of those, right? So like DerbyJS is one, but there's actually one already there for Share, Lever, whatever else. If you wanted to use it.
Oh, interesting.
It's kind of cool. There was, so I don't know, I guess this is kind of show and tell or like announcement like, but there's been a bunch of people on the mailing list submitting new components or like talking about making sort of packages of components, right? So trying to find like dmaterial, right? Sort of like a bootstrap style, a bunch of UI widgets in one place, and so we believe it was in the last week added that to the component examples repo. People have been making pull requests with their examples so that we can include it. There's still a lot of components. I think there's more components not in the components examples repo than there are in it, so I'm hoping to spend some evening time or whatever collecting those and trying to organize it, because I think, yeah, just having more examples ready to look at and explore. I'm entertaining the idea of also like people being able to include a thumbnail or a GIF or something in their repo, and if it's there, we'll show it in the gallery, right? Because having sort of a visual cue. So think about how, like, what the standard for that. It could just be something as simple as if you have thumbnail.jpg or thumbnail.gif or example.jpg or example.gif. It includes it. Someone had a great idea to tag all components in the package JSON with Derby-component, and I haven't gone and done that with any of ours, so I need to do that.
Yeah, people don't really use npm package JSON super consistently, so it will require some serious enforcement if that's something we want to happen. But maybe we could have kind of an automated system for that, like people adding in components, and then also going and finding the package JSON from npm, and then like doing a quick scrub of it and seeing if it is properly marked.
Yeah.
When you add in component examples, it like tells you about it or something, because that would be really useful, but mostly only if it's used consistently.
Absolutely. And I think along those lines is using the package JSON to power the gallery a bit. Like, since we have it available, we can show authors, we can show descriptions, and maybe there's other useful metadata that we could surface, or even like if it's missing certain metadata, we can like, I don't know, do a git hook or something where it like doesn't accept the port, or makes a note on
does some automated pull stuff where like they'll like create automated stuff that will like do a pull request on your README file, I think, for example.
Right.
So.
Привет, ребята! Как дела?
Hi.
Hi, how's it going?
You're gonna have to explain that one to me, Pavel.
It's the same. Hi, how's it going in Russian?
Maybe we'll slowly learn some Russian.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
My mother speaks Russian. Maybe I should bring her.
Oh, are you Russian actually?
No, Lithuanian.
Okay.
Close enough.
Well, it's somewhere near, so like Slovenian languages.
A big place.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think Vladimir has already sent you the link on our new chat. I guess we can send it to everyone else, to those like who want some help. And there are usually me and Vladimir and Arthur, so we can help those who seek for help over
Great.
there. Okay.
Like it should probably come up with some way to funnel people into a limited set of channels, though, at some point, once this is all working well. Like, I think people don't really know where to go to ask questions, like Stack Overflow or IRC or GitHub or mailing list. It's confusing. So
So we have to have some kind of a single source where they can seek for help. It's either IRC, but like the problem, as we already discussed it, is that IRC don't have any logs. So
yeah, IRC is really annoying for a few reasons. It's true.
Yeah.
I'm all for a log.
Okay, well, I guess we'll try how this goes, and
yeah, let's see how it goes.
Yeah.
Oh, Ian, were you playing with Slack for a group you were in? Did Slack have like a free thing for some groups, or was it still paid?
No, I think there's a free thing. I use it with like a small group of friends, but I haven't tried to use it for like a larger community. I love Slack. I think it'd be worth checking out this GitHub or this Gitter thing, seeing as it's like so directly tied to like the open source organizations. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it does look good. I'm just kind of used to Slack and know that I like it, so figured we should.
Well, we can check that out, but actually, IRC is probably the answer. Like, I really just want a UI, like an interface that's like Slack that actually talks to IRC. Like, I don't see why that's so difficult and such a pain in the ass. You know, and something that I can close and open again, and I'll still like be in the channel, and I can see all the messages that happen while I was gone and scroll up.
If you
Yeah.
find that
Someone could
application,
really make
I will
that.
happily use it.
Yeah. Wasn't someone making something like that? Like, surely that's
There
easy.
were
I mean, like,
companies making that went out of business, but I don't know.
right.
I
Yeah.
don't know of any that
I
are.
don't know.
I don't know of any that are still around, but
Right. Well, anyway, all of the like Node.js community is all on ISD. They're all on Freenode. So like, yeah, that's the right answer. Jumping on some commercial thing is a bad choice, I think. But maybe this kid thing's okay. I don't know. I haven't seen it.
I don't know. I mean,
I think it's worth trying. At least for a little bit. It's got the logs. I think like IRC is where people are, but like honestly, I haven't been engaged in IRC on like the D3 channel or any other channel for a year because I always forget to open the client and then I don't see anything when I do log in, right? So I think there different channels. The mailing list and Stack Overflow are also kind of duplicative, but like I think Stack Overflow has become pretty in general, right? Like really effective, and we should probably try to move like troubleshooting type stuff to Stack Overflow.
it's good for things where other people are going to have the same problem and you kind of know it. So
Right. Like, can you set up Stack Overflow alerts or something? Like, I would love to know when people are asking ShareJS questions on Stack Overflow. I can jump in and answer them.
I know Meteor built something to do this because they were having this problem. Maybe I could ask Jeff.
It seems like the kind of question that there should be a Stack Overflow answer about.
There should be.
There's probably a Stack something question about it somewhere.
Yeah, better Stack Overflow or something.
You can do tags, like I guess there's a DerbyJS tag, ShareJS tag probably, and you can subscribe to that tag and get an email. So like I get an email digest of all the new D3 questions every day.
Right.
When I was like getting like more in depth with only D3, that's how I'd kind of keep up with what's going on and answering questions. Well, but at the same time, when D3 like was getting going, like I spent a lot of time on the mailing list, and it was like after the volume got really high on the mailing list, and people kept asking the same question over and over, started moving things to Stack Overflow. So,
Right.
and now Stack Overflow has a ton of D3 stuff on it, and the mailing list is a bit quieter. And you'll have more like conceptual discussions there, like questions about like, is this the right way to do things, or I'm thinking about this project. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Stack Overflow is definitely not as good for open discussion. It's only good for clear answers.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, so we should probably push people. We should just probably come up with guidelines, and maybe this is an action item for I don't know, me and Ian to talk about or something. Or you guys feel free to maybe start a thread on the mailing list. But we should come up with a set of things that we push people toward. Like if they have specific kinds of questions, we push them in this direction, and then do it consistently. And then over time, it'll get a lot better, I think. But I think it'd be useful for us to have some guidelines ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. Currently, there are a bunch of people who are asking questions us in Russian, and they do it in issues on GitHub on Derby FAQ, which is also not really useful for all those who don't know Russian. And like no one knows about the existence of Derby FAQ repository. So
Yeah, GitHub Issues is not great for asking questions. It has okay like searchability through Google, but when you're on GitHub, they're really hard to find, in my experience, and you have to know about the repo. And I think Stack Overflow is better for that.
yeah.
Is Stack Overflow equally popular in Russia?
Yeah, of course, it's it's popular everywhere.
Well, no, I know, but like sometimes things are slightly complicated.
Different in Russia.
Yes, still use Yandex, right?
Well, I don't know who uses Yandex. Do you use Yandex, Vladimir? Oh, he has muted. You have my muted microphone. We can't hear you. It's actually it's China who uses their own some search engine.
Joke,
It's
yes?
not Russia yet, but Russia is going in this direction. Maybe Russia will have everything locked from the outer world. So
Oh, interesting. That's
All around the world, people ask Stack Overflow, but in Soviet Russia, Stack Overflow asks you. You know these jokes, yes, about Soviet Russia?
yeah.
Right. Great.
good. Awesome. All right. Well, yeah. So let's come up with a plan for how we'll answer questions on Stack as well. We can talk about that at the next meeting, maybe once we look into what the notification options are.
Yeah.
Yep. Sounds good.
Cool.
So let's maybe go to the Derby questions. I have a couple of those.
Please do. Yeah, we sort of skipped over since we didn't have any time.
Okay, so we tried to implement a query, some kind of when we looked through the access control guest you have published, there was a comment about that it's maybe better to have queries limited on the server so that you only define server-side queries, yes, and you don't allow client to use those. Well, you don't allow clients to define it.
Yes.
So we tried to implement it via using the share middleware, and the problem with this, well, it actually works pretty fine. It works pretty good. So the queries are limited, and what do you think will be the best API for this? So the problem we run into is that if you have a couple of Derby applications, then you probably want to somehow limit some queries that can be only made from one application or from another application.
I mean,
or it doesn't matter.
What I had in mind was that, and we haven't done this ourselves yet, but we were going to do it soon, actually, is that you just have whatever custom format similar to the URL, right? Like a URL has query parameters and a special format specific to your site. And it's basically a query language. So similar concept, you could just have whatever options object you feel like, and then the middleware specifically handles those objects that you pass along, and then translates them into a Mongo query if it understands it. So probably have like a name and then like extra options. This is all I was thinking of, but this is not very developed because we haven't done it yet. And then there's just no ability to make custom Mongo queries from the client. So that was what I was thinking of. There's probably different formats you could use for that. Heck, you could even use a URL if you wanted to. And then from there, it would just get translated into a Mongo query via a pretty simple function that you would write, most likely. And then the response back to the client, the only thing that needs to be special about it is it needs to be something that can be turned into a JSON object, and it needs to be unique for the same query. That's pretty much all Racer cares about. And ShareJS doesn't even understand queries. It just passes them through, which is ideal. And then, Yeah, that was pretty much it. In terms of different applications having different things accessible to it, you could have like a generic sort of translator thing like that is just the middleware, and it could be really, really simple. And then different modules for different other applications that use that, and just build it into the app. Or maybe you have like one repo that's shared, and then some that are specific to the specific project you're in. Or maybe you just share all of them because it's not a big deal. Or you could also restrict by who the user is instead of by the app, would be another way to think about it. So that's something that we'll probably do is like, there'll be like a name, and then we'll know who you are based on like your session, and then we'll not let you make certain queries unless you're like a certain kind of user.
Mm-hmm.
That's
well,
really how we'll do it instead of
I guess that's the way we implemented it. Actually, Arthur worked on it, and it currently works in a way that you just overrides it creates another like inside a racer model, like a server query method, which just sends the same thing that query do, but wraps it into some additional information like $query and the actual query, like the name of a query, and $params with additional params that are going to then be run through the function on the server side. So I guess it's the same.
Did you publish an example of this or not?
Actually, I thought he published it, but he's going to do it in the morning. So
okay,
it's be there in the next day.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, what I was it'd be easier to just look at the code and know whether.
It's actually simple. It's just a wrapper around a query function, which allows you to only specify a name of the query, and the actual query is specified on the server side.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. There's one caveat about all of that, which is that there's currently a bug in the ShareJS middleware code, specifically for queries. And doing all of that will be totally fine, but you should know that if you register an on-query middleware and
we did like this. Yeah, we registered an on-query middleware and we override it. We do some stuff. We get the actual query which was defined on the server by the name. So the downside of it is. The downside of it is.
The downside is there's a bug, and the bug is that if you take time doing that, like if you don't do it kind of synchronously, then it's possible that the query will be updated while you're doing some things, and like while your middleware is while some part of your middleware is running, it's possible for updates to be lost. Let me just pull that up. I was looking through the code, and I didn't write it, and it's buggy. I can't remember. Actually, I do know who wrote it. Anyway, there's a bug if your query middleware takes some amount of time. So just like beware of that and keep it fast.
Be synchronous anyway, ideally. Maybe the one issue is checking who the user is, but you could probably do that in advance of the middleware.
Yeah, we also have a session that we grab from the. Well, we did it the same way. We pass it to this module, like you did for access control plugin.
Yeah.
So we have a session inside. Yeah, so we can check who tries to run this query.
Yeah. I mean, this is the kind of thing that should be written synchronously, if at all possible. It'll be better.
Oh,
okay.
Sorry. Actually, the on-query middleware is totally fine. The problem is when we go through and inquiries do like filter doc on all of them. So if you're using like a doc filter, then if that's loaded in that, there's potential for there to be bugs. Yeah. I'll be rewriting that at some point. Because I've been cleaning up a lot of the middleware code for ShareJS 8.8, but yeah. But I don't know how much time I'm going to be putting into working on this stuff at the moment, so yeah.
Okay. So, by the way, you mentioned on the last office hours that this is your last week on Lever.
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to do next?
Yeah, so I was talking about that before. So I don't know actually. So for the rest of the year, I'm going to spend a fair bit of time in the States for, late this year, and I'll probably be working on some a bit on ShareJS and a bit on some other side projects. And then I'm going to go back to Australia, probably do a few bits and pieces of contracting work and try and make something, but I don't know what yet. Yeah.
Well, good luck.
Hey. Yeah.
Any other questions that anyone had? If not, we're going to try and do show and tell at the end of these from now on. So does anyone have anything cool that they wanted to show off that they have done recently?
Another question. There is some problems with chat. Nate or Jan or somebody who have access to Derby repo should follow this link, and it will create a new room with access for everybody. Because old room have access to old room only have only members of the DerbyJS organization on GitHub.
Sorry, you're a bit quiet. I missed that.
Sorry. Somebody, Nate or Jan or Joseph, you should follow this link that I gave, and it will create new room in chat.
Okay.
Public room. Because old one was broken. It was only for organization members.
Okay.
Okay.
Got it.
Oh, good. Yes. Thanks.
Cool. Sweet. So we have a group chat room. Show and tell number one. And then anything else? If not, we can just wrap up.
Yes, I'll just show the component examples. Just I don't think we've showed it on video before. I can share my screen. It's this one. Okay, so there's only a handful right now. There's a couple of Lever ones. And let's see, someone submitted a date picker. And I think this is Artur made a warm ipsum component. And this is the bootstrap style one where there's all kinds of, apparently that's a buggy slider. These UI components. And the way he set it up, it looks like he intends to have more structure around how he's showing these, but it's cool. Share buttons. So yeah, I guess I just wanted to show this and kind of encourage people to submit the pull requests, and so we can build this gallery. It's a humble start.
It'll be very cool.
Yeah. Actually, I'd quite like to maybe I'll have to take a crack at this and not commit to anything. We should really get that JSON editor hooked up properly internally with ShareJS operations. We could even think it's being built on top of Racer. But yeah, it'd be really cool in the Adobe example to Adobe components to show a side pane showing the document data, and then as you made changes, you could see the data update. Be sweet.
Absolutely, yeah.
That would be very cool.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to do, really. Or even I don't know if it's easy to make an Adobe component that lets you modify arbitrary JSON. I don't know what that would look like, but
yeah. You can definitely do it. I haven't really thought it through, but it wouldn't be that hard.
Yeah.
It's definitely a dream of mine to have the perfect JSON editor.
Right. Yeah.
I think it's a surprisingly hard thing to do. It seems simple, but it's hard to collapse giant objects well. The one in Chrome is still really annoying. Just for viewer.
Mm-hmm.
What JSON editor does Chrome have?
Well,
Just has JavaScript editor.
just the Explorer, like when you're like looking at objects, it is
Oh yeah.
hard to navigate.
Yeah, that's true. And it's also like, yeah, I don't know, it's kind of like you can't edit with it as well, obviously.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I was just kind of assuming you would start with something like that and then you'd add editing, but
Right. Yeah. I don't know. Right. Yeah.
maybe you
Yeah,
can more like a code editor. That might actually work better. So if it's just like code mirror, and then it smartly moved your cursor around and added like commas and curlies and stuff like that.
It's okay for small JSON objects, but like if you have a big array or you want to deal with a lot of stuff, like CodeMirror, because I do that in Tributary, and CodeMirror adds so much markup, right? Like it really gets crushed after some limit.
Yeah, and you kind of want like Sublime column mode, where you're like editing a bunch of stuff at once. You want to be able to do stuff like that, but that's more aware of the JSON structure.
Yep.
Anyway, this is like a whole product in and of itself. But
yeah, one day.
Have something simple.
Well, yeah. Like, oh wow, there's all these cool features we could add. Yeah, if it had all these features, it's a big project. Oh yeah, that's a big project now. Okay, I'm not gonna worry about it. Well, sure, okay, but like, you could say just take the JSON editor online, because what we used in Godbox and a couple other things. Right now, that's kind of badly hacked with ShareJS in that it just does a document replace on every operation or every change you do, just replacing the entire thing, which is really dumb. I don't know. Like I pinged the guy when we hacked that up, and he was like, "Oh yeah, you should just like hack JSON editor and then like submit a pull request, basically. Like show me what you did, and we'll figure out how to integrate whatever events that JSON editor needs to provide to make that work." And that would be a totally fine start. Like it's not the best JSON editor, but it's totally fine. And
it's not terrible.
Yeah.
Does Firefox have one? I forget.
No idea. Yeah. So fired up Firefox. Yeah.
Been a while.
Cool.
So another thing, guys,
I don't know.
I tried to create a transitioner for Derby. So like there is a similar thing for Meteor. They have an iron router, right? Iron router, and they have a plugin for it, which is called Iron Transitioner, which allows you to have this native, this fill-in as a native application on a mobile, where your screens transition from like one side, they get pushed from one screen, from the screen to another screen, when you go from menus between menus, and I don't know if I did it right, but I have overridden the Derby render function, application render, and it works pretty good. So, and another problem that was solved by this is when you render instead of rendering the whole body, when you render into a particular div, then you have your vendor libs inactive, so they don't break when you do the client-side rendering, which was a pretty big case for us. Like we tried to use like Facebook API and like other libs, and they completely break when you try to render on the client, and you have to somehow clean everything for them and reinitialize them again. So I'm going to open source it like today, I guess. I just didn't do it. So I guess that's a pretty cool demo for the next show up.
Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. Yeah.
And another question: were you thinking about somehow making a phone gap add-on, or I don't know, like a wrapper for the Derby?
It's not like top of mind for me right now. I'm sure it's possible, but we haven't yet figured out how we're going to do mobile apps. I want to ask some other companies what they've been doing, but last I asked some companies, it sounded like doing phone gap was just really hard to make it feel good. And so one alternative strategy that I know Asana did in their last app, they just did a rewrite, so I'm curious what they did in the rewrite. But in the previous version, they actually wrote most of the app in JavaScript, but the UI was in native. So I was thinking that might be a good approach for us because we don't want to necessarily rewrite all of like the ShareJS client, and a lot of your business logic might be shared. But it's just really hard to get mobile HTML to like feel as good as native.
Yeah, and native, like the native UI editor and so on. I don't know. I like some people have different opinions about this, but I actually really like Interface Builder. I really like the tools that Apple provides to make native interfaces. Yeah, and I don't know. I haven't used the Android stuff. I've heard it's much worse. But like, I think I'm a strong believer personally in using the native toolkits whenever you're doing UI stuff. I think that it's always going to work better if you do, and there's always going to be some random little edge case that like users do sometimes, some user does that you don't know about, and the button's already support, and you just toolkits. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's a good approach. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we'd like to support everything, but I don't expect that we're personally going to do PhoneGap soon. But I don't even know what the problems would be. I would assume it would mostly work, but there's always little things that come up whenever you do like a new platform.
Mm-hmm. Well, there is actually, like I sent you a link on a YouTube presentation, like that's not a presentation, it's,
Sure.
I don't know, something from, so there is a book, Discover Meteor, probably you know about it, and like there is a team of developers on Meteor who actively develop tools in Meteor community, and they actually built this Iron router, which is pretty popular on Meteor. And they have some kind of an educational application which they built in Meteor, and they adopted it for the PhoneGap, and they say like in this presentation that it works flawlessly. So there are no like downsides and no frizziness, nothing. They just build the transitioner so that it feels like the screens go from one side to another, that it feels like a native application. But other than that, like they say that the Meteor works pretty good with the.
When people say there are no downsides, I'm very skeptical.
Well, I don't know. They wrote a book.
Sure.
Maybe they.
My experience with software engineering is that nothing is free.
Yeah, nothing's free, and people who tell you that are lying. I don't know. Well, not necessarily lying. They might just be advertising, marketing people, but like.
I wouldn't say they're lying. I think that they're communicating certain things and leaving out other things. So maybe an omission, but I don't. Yeah, I agree. It's more marketing. I personally think that there's nothing wrong with PhoneGap. If you want to use it, it's probably great. There's probably upsides and downsides, but there's also, like, let's be realistic, downsides. Yeah, that's with anything.
Right, and like there's lots of other like random different things you can do. Obviously, like PhoneGap's just running. Apple provides APIs for JavaScript, right? So they've got a JavaScript like interpreter and runtime system that's already running on phones, obviously for Safari, right? You can't use all of it. All the runtime compiler can't actually compile in your own app if you use it because your application's not allowed to set the execute bit on memory at runtime. Unfortunately, which means that your app will run like 4 times slower than native Safari if it's a web app or if it uses web components. But like, there's lots of like random things that people have done using that, obviously. So like, there's some random guy who made actually a really cool little library, and all it is it's an iOS app which hosts a JavaScript interpreter and then provides all of the Canvas APIs into that JavaScript code, Canvas and WebGL, I think. So you can use WebGL and Canvas in JavaScript. Like you can make a game. It's designed for games. You can make a game and debug it locally using Chrome, and then on iOS you just wrap it inside this little wrapper, right? And so we could use something like that, except then also add in like your native UI components, and then still use the JavaScript interpreter to be doing all the work. But yeah, I don't know. I still want a native C implementation and C version of all of the OT code. And I've done a couple like little bits and pieces of work, like plotting it out and seeing what that would look like. And currently it's stalled on doing like JSON 2. I'm actually getting a decent JSON OT type, which lets us move objects. Since I don't want to have to like port the JSON OT code and then port it again later if we make changes to it. But yeah, I have the text OT type working, and I made a C implementation of ShareJS, the ShareJS client at one point. It'll need to be updated to work today, but it totally works. So yeah, that's all doable.
Yeah, I think in the short term, even just like the JavaScript code running for one client isn't slow, right? Even on a mobile device. It's probably
yeah. I think that for Derby it makes most sense to be running everything in JavaScript just because all the work's already happened. And as you say, you've got like client logic that's you're going to want to reuse between web up and mobile app. So yeah.
Well, no, I agree that long run, sure, this stuff will probably get written in C once it's stable. That just is how things happen. It makes sense. But I'd say like in the short term, like there's probably not a huge performance penalty from, say, the ShareJS JavaScript code not running as fast as C in a mobile device versus like the UI being in HTML versus like native UI probably has a humongous performance hit. So
yeah.
In terms of like order of magnitude, I would say the ShareJS side of things is actually probably fine. It's probably completely not an issue unless you're doing something really, really like highly transforming all the time. But that's unlikely for a real app.
Yeah, that's really true, actually. Yeah, and friends have gotten a lot faster. Like it's easy to forget, but like
they're like computers, like desktop computers like 4 years ago are basically how fast phones are now.
Yeah, exactly. And ShareJS was running on desktop computers 4 years ago, so
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, 3.5 years ago, 4 years soon. But yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so you think that it makes sense to try and see how it works on a mobile device using the native Derby UI like HTML and JavaScript as a UI, or doesn't it make sense at all?
No, it makes sense. It totally makes sense. I would say that for us, we're probably not going to do it for the reasons I said, but that I think you should certainly give it a shot if it's something you want to do.
Yeah. I think it should work fine. One thing that I will say is that you should use the WebSocket stuff. I would recommend against using browser channel in specifically iOS devices. The little loading spinner is running the whole time. There's any active HTTP request, which means that if you use browser channel, it just spins all the time, even when your app isn't loaded or when the website's minimized. WebSockets, iOS handles WebSockets much better, and I'd recommend using that. But yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Cool. So we should wrap up. Any last word, Ian?
No, I think that's cool. I'll write up the notes I took and post the video. And yeah, let's do some more the community guidelines stuff. We'll really get on that documentation. And next week if we'll have to have made progress, right? So
yeah, I'll have done something.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Good job.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Cool.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Bye.